Welcome back from the coffee break. I think we're going to jump straight into the second session for the day. I think we've had a very good introduction to this workshop, and we're going into a space where we have a case study and look at the practical issues confronting real businesses that are trying to take on this whole transition business in Africa. I'm moderating the session on e-mobility startups with a case study of Ghana's solar taxi. And all my panel members are actually online. The private sector person who is the CEO of Solar Taxi sends his apologies because he had some emergency this morning and is not able to be here. Government from Ministry of Energy is also not here. But I believe that we'll still have an interesting conversation with the online panelists that we have. So I'll be here. But I'm going to kickstart with a little bit of background, and then also because Solar Taxi is not here, the business itself, because it's one of the companies that are undergoing investment readiness support with Assets Private Sector program. I mean, basically, transitioning to low polluting transportation in increasingly congested African cities is really crucial to improving public health and environmental quality of life while really dealing with the transport-linked greenhouse gas emissions. Across Africa, we see promising cases of some local e-mobility startups, Ghana's Solar Taxi being one of them, who are providing sustainable mobility solutions through innovative business models. And I guess that is the future. According to Lindsay, the brownfield SMEs would not be the ones to help us transition. Yeah, so they're providing these mobility solutions through innovative business models. And they are evolving battery chemistries, designing charging infrastructure, and building markets through unique demand and purchase incentive designs. However, what we see is that the accelerated growth of this nascent sector is limited by multiple firm, consumer, and investor level challenges, most of which are usually reflections of poor government policy, regulatory, and other support measures. The prospect of a mature mobility ecosystem offering sustainable mobility solutions and supporting sustainable development requires an all-inclusive and integrated approach and comprehensive policy framework that integrates all the relevant concerns. Also, national development finance institutions have a role to play in meeting these financing needs of firms, and localizations of EV value chains requires regional alliances and collaborations and active support of startups in building partnerships with multinational enterprises in the e-mobility space. Now, because George, who is the CEO, is not here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do a little bit presentation on the whole business, and then I will end with the key challenges where the panelists are going to speak to the various aspects, the various levels of these challenges and how that space could be supported. Now, as a typical business, private sector has profits as its main orientation. So they always have to see an opportunity. And with Solar Taxi, the main opportunity is that in Ghana, there's a rising middle class that actually have a taste and preference for some of these new mobility solutions. Those of you who've been conversant with our situation, we've had fuel prices rising, astronomically in the last couple of years, where a liter was being sold at around 5 cedis to now around 12.64. And this is a real issue. I mean, at a point in time, we saw cars reducing on the streets, but it looks like we've gotten back, and the traffic is getting worse again. But I mean, cost of fuel, persistent rise in fuel cost is being a challenge, and it's actually an opportunity for an mobility firm like Solar Taxi. They've also looked at the growing e-commerce and demand for courier services, where a number of them major investments have come into the country. We know Glovo is around. Quite a huge global players are in the country, and they are all demanding all these green mobility solutions because of their own global standards. And then because of the fuel costs, also high cost of delivery services, which we see, and then the very unreliable courier service providers that we have had in the past. And of course, like I said, the main issue is the pollution, that's the health problems that we have in our country. So as a firm, these are the opportunities that it sees, to come in and make some money. Now, its solution for the future as a firm is, driving renewable energy adoption in Ghana, starting with mobility. That's what they're doing. So Solar Taxi was started as a project by a student from the University of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, where he was looking at building and retrofitting batteries for our tropical environment. And so he received some support from MasterCard, and that is what started building the company. He's currently involved in with EVs. He's looking at engineering and building affordable electric-powered vehicles. So we see him into cars, bikes, and tricycles. He also has an EV fleet management, which is more environmentally sustainable transportation services at very affordable prices. And then also in terms of renewable energy, accelerating the use and growth of renewable energy sources in conventional ways. So they're doing the battery engineering and development. So those are the main activities or services being provided by Solar Taxi. Now, while doing that, it's also targeting some SDGs. We have SDG 5, that's achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. Now, the whole engineering department of Solar Taxi is made up of women. It's 100% women. Yeah, 100% women. And the women are the ones building the batteries. They actually retrofitting and assembling chassis and all of that. And it's amazing to see them do these. Also look at the SDG 7, ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. SDG 8, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Now, with the bikes that are built by Solar Taxi, most of them are given to bikers who use them for business. So they become the courier and the delivery or dispatch drivers. So any bike that is put on the market provides jobs for the people of Ghana, for the youth. And we have the SDG 11, that's making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Of course, because it's looking at moving away from internal combustion engines to batteries, which they are doing so well because currently retrofitting quite a number of ICE bikes and tricycles to batteries. And then finally, they're also working around taking urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. As a startup, Solar Taxi has been able to engage, and of course, it's become very interesting for a number of players, like I mentioned, like Glovo and Co. And I've offered, these people have actually offered him huge offtake agreements to supply several thousands of bikes and tricycles to undertake the courier services and the dispatch services as well. And then also even in the north, in some areas where um, what you usually will call the tuk-tuk, they've retrofitted them and they're actually also into direct human and transportation. Now, with the current pipeline deals, like I said, Jumia, for example, has ordered over 600 bikes. Bolt Food, 2,000 bikes. Global, 200. Bolt, 300. And Lechego, 100. And these are all major orders that have been placed. But beyond Ghana, also, there are interesting offers coming from countries like Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, even Senegal, and a number of them around within the West African region. And those of you who've traveled along the West African region, you realize that motorbikes, the ice bikes, if you go to Togo, Benin, Nigeria, I mean, at every traffic light, they overwhelm you with so many of them, you know, fighting for space. So this has all become opportunities for retrofitting some of these ice bikes, you know, into electric bikes. So there's a huge opportunity for this startup with its innovation to grow across West Africa. However, I should say that with all these demands, major challenges face this company. Some of them at the macro level, some of them also directly at the firm level. So we see that access to finance to actually even purchase these bikes for use by these off-takers has been a major challenge. Now, usually what they do is that even when they buy e-bikes and e-tricycles, they still retrofit the batteries to make them more tropical, so they're able to withstand the weather here in Ghana. So access to finance has been a major challenge, but then also more importantly, it's an industrial policy, you know, that is very clear with respect to its fiscal regime and investment regimes to support, you know, or to solicit the right behaviors from investors that are looking into the e-mobility space. Another major challenge will be infrastructure, because so far across Ghana, there are only 4 charging points. So what they do is that for those who really buy their cars, they actually set up charging units in their homes. But then, of course, it's not sustainable, because if you have to do long range, then there is a problem. So infrastructure is a major problem. But I should also say that as an opportunity, because Ghana has excess capacity in terms of electricity generation in excess of over 2,000 megawatts, this is an opportunity to really have all these charging points where various cars and bikes could actually recharge, you know, to keep them running. Yeah, and then also significant to them is support for labs, for R&D. It's a space that requires heavy investment in terms of R&D, which is something that they do not have. So these are some of the challenges that really confront solar taxi. So, I mean, for the purposes of this discussion, for a company like Solar Taxi that is trying to be innovative within that space, looking at green industrialization or green transition, what we are asking is that how do we provide an enabling environment for firms like Solar Taxi to be successful? And today with me to discuss these, like I mentioned, the fiscal panelists are not here. So online, we have Tobias Woodke from Bard College in Berlin.